Hey guys, thanks for tuning in, watching, coming back, all this stuff. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a great day. This is going to be another video like I did a few weeks ago. I'll put a link up there. Kind of what I call like 5-minute photo chats. They're never really 5 minutes, but just talking about a subject that I want to talk about. So let's go ahead and jump into today's topic. I've been into photography now for probably 10 years, and in the last few years I've had some successes I'm really proud of. I was published on the cover of a poetry book, made the cover of a visitor's guide to Austin. I even got an image in Popular Photography in a Nikon ad a number of years ago. I've licensed photos to companies around the world, including like a tourism company in Copenhagen, where you can get coasters that have my images on them, even a set of napkins that have my images on them you can buy in gift shops in Copenhagen. I've licensed photos to companies, websites, marketing departments, calendars. I've sold 4-foot wide metal prints to customers that are hanging these in their living room, things like that. And despite all those successes, I'm not a professional photographer. I did a lengthy Q&A video a few weeks ago, and I'll put a link up here. And one of the more popular questions was, hey Jim, is your primary income from photography? And the answer is no. Now, it was for a few years. In fact, 2.5, 3 years or so I spent just supporting myself with photography, but that's not the case now. I have a day job which I love, and yet I still do my photography on the side because I love it and it fills my soul, that sort of thing. And a lot of you have asked me to do a video about how do I make money with photography, and I will do that, but that is not this video. This video is about trying to define what a professional photographer really is. That question about deriving income from photography that I answered in my Q&A video, it got me thinking about what constitutes a professional photographer. Everybody seems to have their own opinion or own definition of that, but it often comes down to, do you make money with your photography? But it also seems that there's a further qualifying question that really comes into play, and that is, do you make all of your income from photography? So how do you define it? I used to think, hey, if you do something in exchange for money, you're a professional, whether you do it full-time or not. And I've definitely done a lot of photography things in exchange for money. I've sold images, licensed them, things like that, as I talked about already. And so doesn't that make me a pro? Even if I have a day job, can't I also be a pro as well? And you see, for that nearly 3-year period, all I did was photography. So I was definitely a pro then, because I was supporting myself and working full-time at photography during that time frame, but I'm not now. So am I still a pro photographer, even if I have a day job? I used to think so, but the more I think about it, it feels like it's a little bit more layered and complicated than that. So when I started in photography about 10 years ago, I used to follow all these people that I thought were pro photographers online. I mean, that's just how you kind of get started. You find people whose images you like and you follow them. And their image quality, it just blew me away. I mean, mind-boggling, gorgeous photos, and I just assumed that they were pro photographers. But it turns out a lot of them weren't. It was basically a side hustle for these people. Now, it was a side hustle that they're really freaking good at, but a side hustle nonetheless. And they made money from their photography, or at least I assume they did, and frankly hope that they did. But were they really pro photographers? I don't know. Back then I thought of a pro photographer as somebody who made their primary income from taking photographs and then selling prints or licensing images to companies. Emphasis here is on the word primary. I still pretty much think of it that way, but photography has definitely changed quite a bit in the last 10 years. And a lot of pro photographers make a substantial part of their income doing things that are adjacent to actually taking pictures and selling those prints or licensing those images. They might run workshops or tours. They'll sell presets. They'll make ebooks. They'll do coaching and training, workshops, things like that. There's a lot of different ways that pro photographers make money these days. And my assumption is that a lot of these pro photographers actually make more income from these other things than they do from taking photos and selling the prints or licensing the images. And that's totally okay. It's a wide and wild world of photography out there, and I love seeing the different creative ways that photographers come up with to earn an income. I love to see these success stories because frankly, it's enlightening and encouraging for the rest of us. So a couple of years into my own photography journey, after selling some prints and licensing some images to companies, my ego started telling me, hey, maybe you should call yourself a pro photographer, because after all, didn't you just get paid for your work? And isn't that what being a professional is all about? Doesn't making money on something make you a pro? If you're paid for your work, you're a pro, right? Seemed logical to me. But I think a lot of people think of a pro photographer as someone who earns 100% of their income from photography, and they do this full time. I think that's probably an accepted definition for most people. And so this is what I now think of as not a pro or even a working pro, but a full-time working pro. There's so many nuances, it seems like. These are people that are working 100% of the time in photography and all of their income is derived from it. And you know what? That's a definition I'm happy to get behind. So going back in my own history, 8 or 10 years, when I'd first sold some prints and licensed some images to company, I was definitely not a pro. I was just an amateur. And frankly, by that definition, I'm not even a pro now. I spent over 2.5 years doing nothing else but photography. So was I a pro then, but now that I have a day job, I'm an amateur again? So can you go backwards like that? Am I regressing? And did I actually get worse? I don't think so. I think I've gotten better, but according to that definition, I've definitely retreated. But despite that, I think my work has gotten better, has gotten more consistently better, and I'm improving. So I'm a better amateur than I was as a pro, perhaps. That's okay. I've also known photographers that have made really good side money from photography, and they classify themselves as semi-pro. Now that feels a little bit like you're riding the fence in terms of self-description, but that's totally okay, and I get it. It makes sense. It's an acknowledgement that you're not working full-time in photography, but you're making money at it. And again, I think that's totally okay. Maybe I'm a semi-pro these days. Maybe that's how I should describe myself or classify myself. I don't really know, and the truth is, I'm not sure that I care. Here's my opinion on the whole debate of how do you define a pro photographer. It doesn't matter. And you know why? Because the one thing that being a pro does not mean is that your images are better than everybody else's all the time. I've seen mind-blowing work from amateur photographers, and then I've seen some so-so work from hard-working, well-respected, highly capable pro photographers. While that's not always the case, it does happen. Now, I'm not picking on anybody specifically, but that's a true statement. Just because you work as a pro photographer does not mean you're going to create the best images every single time. It's impossible. It just doesn't happen. There are a lot of factors that come into play. You have no control over some of them, and thus you don't always get the results that you want. It happens to everyone, even the full-time working pros, and that's okay too. Sure, I may have been working as a pro for 2.5, almost 3 years, and I've been to some great places during that time and took what I thought were great photos. And you know what? I saw plenty of photos from people I'd never heard of that are self-described as amateurs, and their images blew mine away. They're gorgeous. Just because I was working as a pro didn't mean I was better than they are. So am I a pro photographer? I don't really know. Certainly I'm not, based on the definition that I shared earlier. I'm not a full-time working pro, and I don't earn 100% of my income from photography. But the truth is, I don't really care if I'm classified as a pro photographer or not. I'm just a photographer. Pro, semi-pro, working pro, advanced amateur, call it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter to me. I have a healthy business that's photography related. I make pretty decent money at it, and I love everything about it. So does that make me a pro? I don't know. So I don't really care how it gets labeled or how I get labeled. It doesn't really matter to me, to be honest. So regardless of how you label yourself or how you get labeled, just go out and take photos and let the chips fall where they may. Work on your skills, flex your creative muscles, get better at your craft, and have a hell of a good time doing it. Who cares if you're a pro or not? Now just go take pictures and have fun out there. Maybe you'll sell some of the photos too, and then you can tell your friends that you're a pro photographer. Thanks for watching, my friends. Take care. Adios.